All right. Okay, so you guys know how I do. I try to hurry up and do this as quickly as I can while the kids are asleep. But I just wanted to take time out to kind of share. Hopefully, this camera, this mic. I think I checked it. Is it good? Is it good? Is it good? Okay, it's good. Um, this Israel Iran situation, right, is getting kind of crazy. Um, I try to stop in while the kids are asleep, and I already know how they kind of do. Took a while to get Junior to go to sleep. I don't know why he was tripping today. Um, but he was doing his thing, right? It's like the terrible twos, it hit him late. Like he was so cool. It's like now that he's about to be 3 in like no time, he's been like really, really different. Um so he doesn't really go to sleep. And then he's got this thing where he likes to wake up Jazz, his little sister, which is like crazy. Just let her sleep. Anyway, so I'm gonna try to hurry up and get this one in because I've been wanting to comment on this for a little while, and there's been so many things happening, so many rapid developments. It's been going pretty fast with this whole thing with Iran. So what I want to do is start out with I want to say Trump's remarks here.
And Isfahan, Hal, it looks like President Trump, Vice President Vance, and others. It looks like Secretary Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio here. Let's listen to the president after the strikes on Iran.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's number one state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani.
Yeah, so this whole deal with them chanting "Death to America" and all that, like, I, on one end, I know like there were a lot of people who were like, okay, if Israel is doing all this, they're getting in the middle of all this, that's them. Let them handle their stuff, you know. But at the same time, and I hate to say that I'm like quoting something that Zelensky said when he was like, you know, you have this big ocean between you guys, so you don't really have to worry about things the way that we do in Ukraine. Well, I'm kind of feeling the same way. And sorry if I'm talking fast, just trying to hurry up before the kids wake up. But anyway, I'm sort of kind of feeling this way about, you know, the whole how we pretty much, I want to say, backed Israel. Um, because one thing I have to say is that where people in Israel is not chanting death to America. So I mean, if you just had to pick, you know, which one you're gonna pick sides with, I'd have to say you have to back Israel, right? But the thing is like there's always been this fact that I guess Iran, they can't have nuclear weapons, right? Anybody who's our enemy, they can't have nuclear weapons. Um, and so, with that being said, on one end, I understand like some people being like, you know, that's Israel's situation. You know, they went ahead and jumped into this issue. That's their war. But at the same time, it's like I don't believe that Israel have the capacity without the United States backing them to stop Iran from doing anything, especially when you consider Iran's allies. So, like, yeah, I know there's a lot of controversy around the fact that the United States, we have our own issues, but at the same time, we have pretty big threats overseas. And we don't understand how bad things can be because we're here. We're very, very privileged here in the States. Um, let's see.
I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So that was Trump there. Um, pretty short, pretty sweet, pretty to the point. Which, you know, in my opinion, you know, I greatly appreciate the fact that he didn't word salad us to death or whatever. He just pretty much came in, told us, you know, what he decided to do. And then it just went on from there. And so like I'm kind of going to be doing a walkthrough up into the coverage for what's been going on there lately. So again, like just to kind of lean back on this point of, you know, Israel having its conflict or whatnot, and how we probably shouldn't get involved, right? Um, which is understandable, you know, for people to have that opinion. But at the same time, what's happening overseas, and I don't mean to be too like paranoid or anything, but we haven't truly dealt with uh, enemies like overseas, like affecting us here. So it's kind of scary because we have conflicts. You know, like of course we had a little bit of involvement with the Ukraine war with Russia, so that's already scary. And then of course there was this conflict with the Tutsis advancing the way that they were, and then now you got this issue down in well over in Iran, you know, them kicking off with Israel. And so yeah, like it's getting kind of crazy out there. um and so I also got another part that I wanted to share here, and I'm just kind of going as quickly as I can because I know this is going to be unfolding pretty rapidly. Wanted to kind of share my thoughts on it.
Good afternoon. I'm Hallie Jackson in Washington, and we are coming on the air with live coverage of the fallout from last night's historic American strikes on those Iranian nuclear facilities as the U.S. enters the war now between Israel and Iran. with the bombing of those nuclear sites. It's the first time the U.S. has ever bombed Iran directly in such a manner. The Pentagon today calling this Operation Midnight Hammer and revealing some new information about how this attack unfolded with 30,000-pound so-called bunker buster bombs capable of destroying targets deep underground. The defense secretary and chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying the Iranian nuclear program was damaged, was devastated by the attack, with officials calling it the biggest B-2 strike in American history, with still some questions today about what that damage really looked like and how this affected Iranian nuclear capabilities. The Trump administration is making clear their goal has not been regime change, but instead the destruction of these nuclear capabilities, with some of these comments here from Vice President Vance this morning. Listen to this.
Well, actually, I did not want to get into Vance's comments, but I did, however, want to highlight the fact that we are not looking for regime change, which is amazing because that's something that I was afraid about. Like Operation Iraqi Freedom, hopefully I'm able to say that, was more so about regime change, which was so frustrating for me because I'm not gonna just speak from like a veteran's perspective, but also like a U.S. citizen, a taxpaying citizen. I just, well, everybody always say this about like how we all have our own issues, right, here in this country, and so it costs to go to war, it also creates instability for us to a certain extent. And as far as like our allies, it also causes instability with them. Like there's this saying that, if America sneezes, the world catches a cold. Being one of the superpowers of the world, we have to be mindful of the decisions that we make. Now, oh, sorry, mama. So now I understand that there are other countries and things like that, but we still have an impact. Uh-oh, be careful, mamas. So we still have an impact, and we've made these decisions. In my opinion, I don't. It's really super duper controversial because I feel like we couldn't just not do anything. To delay for too long, in my opinion, would have been a mistake. And although I personally believe that Israel kind of jumped the gun on this one, I also respect the fact that there's a geographic concern. I won't say they're like right next door, but they're so geographically close. So the idea of an enemy, they don't share a border, but the idea of an enemy that's so geographically close, at least they're in the same hemisphere having nuclear weapons, being able to access that. It's pretty scary stuff, right? And here in the United States, we often, oh my God, we always take for granted that we don't have to worry about stuff like this. Like the fact that we've been, and I don't mean to minimize anybody's experience, but the fact that we've been so upset about, deporting people, in my opinion, I just feel like there are so many more issues and there are so many deeper things going on right now to where, just us in this country, we're just saying stuff like saying crazy stuff. Like there was a situation we had with Canada. We stand with Canada. There was a situation with Ukraine. We stand, and it's like it's treasonous. Like this is so serious, right? I know the commercialization of patriotism, which that was wordy. Commercializing being patriotic is not appealing, but when you're thinking, and especially for Americans, when you're thinking about, standing up for a foreign country, you have to keep in mind that here in this country, like it's costly to live, needless to say. And although we do have it hard in this country, we don't have it nearly as hard as a lot of other people do, right? So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Um, and so I was really relieved to learn that there was no regime, no, we weren't talking about regime change. Um, because I was kind of afraid of that. Let me see, there was something else that I wanted to share as well. I don't think I have that tab up. Let's see. La, la, la. Let me see if I can find this here. I don't want to hit that button. That button might do something different. But yeah, so that's one thing that I really try to be mindful of. Let's refresh this page, see if I can find this clip. Because this was something that I was thinking that was like pretty interesting. Um, I mean, you got people that are, they're just out here living their lives, and at any moment, a bomb can fall out of the sky. We don't have those kind of issues here in the United States of America. Like, we really don't understand how good we got it here. The fact that we don't have to worry about anyone coming over here and actually toppling our government, like I mean, we're like the super rich kids that are always complaining. We got it so well over here. So I just wanted to kind of Vice President.
And joining me now is Vice President J.D. Vance. Vice President Vance, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Kristen. Great to be with you.
Thank you for being here on a monumental Sunday. My first question, Mr. Vice President, is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. And let me just say, Kristen, that we're incredibly grateful and proud of the American Air Force pilots who did an incredible job last night. The
Air Force 4.
operation was really extraordinary. These guys flew from Missouri. They didn't land a single time. They dropped 30,000-pound bombs on a target the size of a washing machine, and then got back home safely without ever landing in the Middle East or ever stopping other than to briefly refuel. And of course, they did that in the air. So it's really an incredible operation, a testament to the power of American military. And I think what shows what can happen when you have that great American military in the hands of capable presidential leadership. What we did is we destroyed the Iranian nuclear program. I think we set that program back substantially, and we did it without endangering the lives of the American pilots. That's an incredible thing, and I think we all should be proud. Whatever our politics, we should be proud of what these guys accomplished. A very, very high impact mission under a lot of pressure.
Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, so I do appreciate the fact that no lives are lost in this. Well, no American lives are lost in this. So just to kind of piggyback, because I just kind of wanted to underline the fact that this is not, the intention is not to be in some kind of long drawn out conflict, you know. Um, because I have to say, the Iraq war, that was just, in my opinion, so unnecessary. And it just went on and on and on. And then eventually, we started kind of trickling into other places in the Middle East. And then we ended up having to pull out of there. I oftentimes hear people say there should be peace in the Middle East. Well, I don't think that we can bring that there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we as the United States of America can make there ever be peace in the Middle East. There's always conflict there. They've been warring, like even since biblical times. Like they're always going to have something going on over there, right? And so, with that being said, I appreciate how cut and dry Trump was. I appreciate how cut and dry JD Vance is. I have a little bit of skepticism when he says, no, we're not in war with Iran, but to bomb someone and to think that nothing's going to come of it, well, I don't think he think there's nothing that's going to come with it. I think it was just to kind of put Americans at ease, just to be like, well, I know a lot of people might feel like, we're going to war because it's a, missile strike, right? But the whole objective is to ensure that Iran does not have nuclear weapons. So the fact that this wasn't some confusion, oh, they got weapons of mass destruction, and only to find out that they don't have it, or oh, they just make up things as they go, and then of course you got people who are conspiracy theorists about 9/11, the fact that that hasn't been released after 10 years is kind of crazy. But the fact that we had this thing is open, is shut, is encapsulated. Um, the president has made his decision. The vice president is backing him. There's no confusion. Um, that's that, right? So I just kind of wanted to bring that up, and you guys are kind of doing this through a fire hose, and I appreciate it. I mean, I apologize if I'm not really giving it the time that you think it may deserve, but at the same time, I just wanted to get these points out before the kids go to bed tonight. Um, because here's another thing I wanted to show up as well. Because I was thinking to myself, American, right? And I am starting to kind of feel like this might affect, our lifestyle once again, right? Um, so basically, Iran is one of those juggernauts of the world that could deeply affect the price of oil, and everything runs by oil, fuel, gasoline, things like that. So, real quick, just wanted to throw this out here.
All right, welcome back in here too, live now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. Let's get into more of the aftershocks after the U.S. decided to strike Iran in those 3 nuclear sites. And let's talk about the Iranian government, the parliament threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, we heard about that during the United Nations Emergency Security Council meeting. We're awaiting any comments here as, of course, the parliament in Iran has approved a measure to close the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global oil choke point. And while the parliament has voted in favor of closing that strait, the final decision remains with the supreme leader. And of course, this is a major waterway, as some 20 million barrels of crude oil, or 20% of the global consumption, flowed through that strait in 2024.
So, 20% of the global consumption of oil flowed through this strait that Iran is thinking about, is pushing to close, right? That's huge. So the entire world was leaning on this oil coming through the strait in 2024, 20% of the oil sources. Now, in 2024, I remember everybody talking about pain at the pump and all this other stuff. If they decide to do something like this, if we thought things were bad in 2024, 2025, we're already here in the United States, we're already complaining about oil, right? We're already complaining about groceries, the cost of living. Um, and so these are the things that I'm kind of thinking about as well as I was looking at these reports. Is that of course there's going to be retaliation, but then you have to step back again and ask yourself, like, what would be worse? Them having access to nuclear weapons, or um, we could potentially have to pay more for our resources. So if you think about the two, you got to pick the lesser of two evils, because again, I've heard a lot of people say, we shouldn't get involved. That's Israel. Israel has their own issues. United States, we got our own issues, especially with this immigration stuff going on over here. That's like the hotbed topic over here right now, right? Like, we're so busy having people here who are not supposed to be here. And then there's controversy about that, because even the people who are not supposed to be here, they're like this in the States, but they're still staying here for like decades, right? It's getting it's getting really out of hand. Everything is getting kind of sticky here. So I'm thinking that I'm hoping at worst that this would just be another economic thing, you know, um, because I don't know, like their leadership in Iran, they're talking tough. They're talking about striking back, all these different things. Like, a lot of us kind of speak about World War III pretty lightly, especially here in the States. But ugh, ugh, World War One and Two changed, in my opinion, it changed the course of humanity like forever. right? This is before we had the technology that we have today. We're talking about nuclear war here. World War III is not just, ooh, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. That is not the attitude we should be taking here. So I think that at the very least, it's like when there's war and conflict, you just got to pick the lesser evil to hope for. Because if we had just kind of chilled out and been like, whatever, no big deal, there's no telling how this could have gone, right? So going through this really, really quickly. I think this part here is more for veterans, um, especially, for people like me that actually uh, had a hand in deployments operations to an extent. Um, this is a really cool thing too. Fox News kind of broke this down. I got two parts of this segment to share. So here we go on that one. I clicked it. Did I click it? Oh yeah.
We are back with a Fox News alert. U.S. military bases in the Middle East remain vigilant after Iran threatened to retaliate after yesterday's strikes, which hit 3 of the country's nuclear facilities. The attack was the largest B-2 operational strike in U.S. history, utilizing 7 of the stealth bombers and more than 125 other U.S. military aircraft, according to the Pentagon. In total, the U.S. employed approximately 75 precision-guided weapons, including 14 of the 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs and over 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from a U.S. submarine. Lucas Tomlinson is live at the Pentagon with the latest. Lucas, what new information do you have for us tonight?
Well, good evening, Katie. Where did those other 31 bombs and missiles come from? They came from U.S. military fighter jets, which were the first into Iran ahead of the B-2 strike to launch this operation. Here was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane.
The U.S. employed several deception tactics, including decoys, as the 4th and 5th generation aircraft pushed out in front of the strike package at high altitude and high speed, sweeping in front of the package for enemy fighters and surface-to-air missile threats.
Now, this mission began with deception. 9 B-2 stealth bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri just after midnight early Saturday. 2 flew west over the Pacific to act as decoys. But 7 of those B-2s did not fly west. They flew quietly to the east, not squawking with minimal communication.
So he's going to get into the details of, which in my opinion, I think that's disturbing, that the media is actually speaking at length about what happened here, because it almost makes you wonder, if you could just watch the news and figure out the way that we go about our operations. Sometimes it makes me uncomfortable, especially as a veteran. I'm like, I don't know if we should be talking about all the specifics. So maybe that's just kind of, my past experience kind of triggering me a little bit. But this is something that I really, really wanted to get into here. So we talked about the fuel prices and stuff like that. But this I felt was very important for like how this will affect people who are actually in the uniform. Right. So like maybe we'll start back to here.
And then to move on here to the very last screen, these are the basic men and women in uniform that are vulnerable to attack now. I can't tell you an ordnance order of battle. I can't tell you these is a higher target than the other, but I can tell you, I lived at the Al Asad Air Base, and that is a very important air base for us. It's big, it's fortified. I don't know what we have there, but I would imagine it's assets we need. Any of these that say air base, in my opinion, are a higher value target, because it's my belief that if Iran comes back with a measured response, not trying to draw blood, but to take away assets to show that they can respond, they're going to go after maybe planes and things like that. I don't know that. I haven't heard that. But that's my presumption as a ground troop that just knows how to play the game Risk. So, guys, hopefully that was educational, helped you understand some of the rhetoric and some of the explanations that have come across. At the end of the day, what you need to know is that our military is badass. And when it comes to conventional
Ugh, Fox News. They always go a little too far. So this is what I have to say about this. My gosh, that was so corny. This is kind of why like being a Republican is kind of tough because like oh my god, it's the Republican Party is just not cultured. But whatever, that was just so embarrassing. I didn't even know he said that at the end. I kind of fast forward through because you know Fox News can be a little toxic in my opinion. But just looking at all these air bases, um, this is Air Force here. This is the branch that I served in. And to be able to see this map and to be able to see that these folks are, you know, in the line of pretty much danger here. Um, I know for a lot of civilians, it might not be that big of a deal, but it's just one of those things with being a veteran where you can look at a map and you can look at these bases. Like, there were times when I was almost deployed to these, but in the Air Force you can kind of pick and choose if you want a deployment or not. You talk to your supervisor, your chain of command, all that good stuff. But at the same time, like it just made me think like to actually be able to see a graphic of you know people that I've deployed. Well, I wouldn't say I've deployed because I wasn't an officer, but I've had a hand in signing off on like their orders and things like that. To just look at how this conflict is getting so out of hand and all the military members that are pretty much in the line of fire at this point. Um, in my opinion, like I did play what JD Vance said earlier, that this is not the intent. Nobody intends to start a war, right? World War One and Two. I highly doubt that the leaders around the world was like, we're gonna create death, destruction, and upheaval for everybody. We're just gonna, have the whole world under siege. Um, it always starts with just instability here and there, and then before you know it, places are going up in smoke. Especially, and maybe I might look up some things about, like I think there was like a clip or something that was like the perfect recipe for a war. Um, we've got a lot of instability going on. We have limited resources. We have, here in the United States, we have people who arguably have invaded the country. And I know that's a very strong way to characterize the whole anti-ICE movements and everything else. But when you really think about it, we have people here who are not supposed to be here. Do you know how scary that is? The fact that we're picking a side. We've come out of the Ukraine situation. I still don't think we're completely done with that, right? I don't think we've come out like completely clean on that. But we've got that situation looming, and then before we know it, now we're using firepower against Iran, you know, and we've picked a side, essentially. It's kind of like if you're walking down the street, somebody you're cool with get into a fight with somebody bigger and stronger than them, and you're cool with this person, and you just got out of a fight up the street. All of a sudden, you got another conflict on your hands, and the idea, like, I understand that JD Vance being in a leadership role, him backing Trump, him saying, "Hey, we're not in war with Iran. We're in war with their nuclear program." Right? Sounds easy, sounds sweet, sound clean enough. But what we're seeing is that now Iran, they're not just going to be like, "Oh, okay, you got rid of our nuclear program. My bad." No, it's not going to just be cool like that. So hopefully, I mean, you can never guess about what's going to happen on the other side, really. Um, but I don't know. It's so much instability. Like, with so much instability going on here. like on the the social front, the political front, the economic front, now the military front, is getting it's getting really out of hand. And here in the United States, we still talking about alleged stuff that's happening in the media. We're still talking about celebrity gossip. I got some people that that I've been in touch with. They're still reeling over Juneteenth and things like that. When you're looking at situations where people are literally being bombed, um, here in the United States, we know nothing about that. We don't know what it's like to look up and see like a flurry of missiles coming down. You know, hopefully we'll never see that. Um, we haven't seen that. I think that's what make our country so great. Other countries, they're used to this. They're used to regime change, government instability. We don't deal with this stuff at all. So that was, kind of like my take on everything. I just kind of wanted to share some of the stuff that I've been seeing in the news, and developments are still going on even right at this minute. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Kids are asleep, so you guys know how I do. I had to go grab Jazz real quick. Um, and so yeah, now it's time to lay her down, put Junior to sleep too, working with two kids at one time. But I really wanted to kind of talk about this, and shout out to all my veterans out there. Um, I mean, man, it's kind of scary. It makes you wonder, yeah, I appreciate the vice president's mindset when he says we're not trying to go to war, but nobody tries to go to war, right? So anyhow, you guys, this is kind of short compared to what I usually do, but Jazz is heavy and my arm is falling asleep. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this live, and I'll probably catch you guys on the next one. All right, y'all have a good night.